but I particularly wanted you tonight because of the apparent volte-face which has taken place by the Trump administration in relation to ending the Ukraine war. Unless there's something we don't know about, Trump has now taken ownership of this conflict. And that's a very dangerous step indeed, in my view. What's yours?
Trying to make sense out of the Trump administration's inconsistencies is an impossible task, but I will give it my best effort. First of all, let's start with some known knowns, as our old friend Donald Rumsfeld used to say. There are known knowns, and there are things that are unknown. We know that Donald Trump had a 90-minute phone call with Vladimir Putin, and we know that Donald Trump is aware of the contents of that phone call. And we also are aware that there's going to be a follow-on phone call this coming Friday, apparently, where Vladimir Putin will remind Donald Trump of the contents of the 90-minute phone call. And this is a reality that Donald Trump cannot escape, no matter what fiction Marco Rubio and Michael Waltz, try to, generate out of their meeting in Riyadh with the Ukrainian side. So that tells me that there's something else going on here. And we're also finding out today that Donald Trump has fired Keith Kellogg, his Ukrainian envoy, and a man who was his chief Russian advisor in the lead up to the election and in the early months of an administration. Keith Kellogg is no longer part of the Ukraine negotiating team. And this is a good thing because Keith Kellogg was grounded in a narrative that was not fact-based, and much of his advice was counterintuitive and contradictory to the path that Trump appeared to be taking when he had his 90-minute phone call with Vladimir Putin. So why did Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz do what they did in Riyadh? Clearly, they're not going to pull the wool over the Russians' eyes. The Russians are aware of the negotiating record, and the Russians have been very savvy in responding, saying that they're going to withhold until the United States comes and reports to them in person exactly what's going on. At which point in time, I would imagine that the Russians will say, we're all in favor of a ceasefire. Hell, let's sign right now. Except we've got preconditions, and you're well aware of those preconditions because you acknowledged that they were valid preconditions the last time we talked, and we're sort of curious why you didn't bring it up this time. And you're going to have to bring it up if you want us to be a part of this. And I think the United States will say, you're absolutely right. Because what I think is happening here, let's set it up this way, George. In the lead up to Riyadh, we had Europe going crazy, literally insane, talking about nuclear war with Russia, talking about forming secret armies they were going to deploy, air power deploying, just $800 billion mobilization, etc. And yet, in one fell swoop, what did Trump and his negotiating team accomplish in Riyadh? As soon as Marco Rubio said, and the ball is now in Putin's court, all of Europe, without exception, did the about face and said, we love this ceasefire. The ball is in Putin's court. We love this ceasefire. They were no longer talking about emergency mobilizations, sending troops, nuclear war. They were saying, we love this ceasefire. And so now, if Putin comes back and says, I love it too, but I have conditions. And the Americans say, okay, we're going to receive it, and now we begin the negotiation. The United States has always said that this isn't going to be settled instantly, that there will be back and forth. I think what the Trump administration did is trap Europe into this negotiating process and is basically stymied them now because they did their about face. They were so panicked about building up this emergency force, nuclear war, nuclear confrontation, and all say, we love this ceasefire.